Good morning, good morning, good morning. The sun is shining, the birds are chirping, and you are breathing. Today is Sunday, February the 26th, 2023. My name is Stephen Carnegie, and welcome to This Is Just a Thought. Today's word of the day, pontificate, which means to speak pompously or dogmatically. Pontificate. Hope everyone is enjoying that Sunday. Hope you guys enjoyed the weekend. And if you are off this weekend, you are indeed truly blessed. I had to work yesterday, but I'm off today. So I'm going to, once again, like I always say, when I'm off, especially on the weekend, I'm going to relax. Don't call me. Don't ask me to do nothing because I ain't doing it. I'm going to have me a day to myself. I just am. That's just me. That's just me. Oh well, who cares? Hey, the weather. Wow, what is going on in the United States? The weather across the country, and that's from East Coast to West Coast. Wow. On the West Coast, California, they're having record amount of snowfall, or just snowfall in general, in Southern California. Nope, not in the mountains, in the southern part of California. Now, you know the old mantra, you know the old R&B song by Tony, and Tony. It never rains in Southern California. Well, doesn't look like they're worried too much about rain. It's the snow. It's snowing. Man, if you see the videos or see the news coverage, it's unbelievable. Snow and palm trees. That's odd. That's odd. But they're centering it around LA County. I believe the actual city of LA, they're getting the rain. But up there in LA, certain parts of LA County, they are getting snow. I mean, I saw the video of the snow and the palm trees, and I was like, man, how ironic is that? How odd does that look? Looks extremely odd. I'm just going to be honest with you. It does. You got that snow out there in California, and that's moving across the United States, so much so they're telling folks in Michigan, New York, and up there in the Northeast to stand by, It's a coming, and it's a coming fast. It's moving fast. And it's already, I believe it's already gone through, in Michigan, and it's wreaked a little havoc there also. Also, side note, which I found odd, and I really didn't know, I really didn't pay attention. Apparently, New York City is having a snowfall deficit this year in the winter, in February. Wow. They are. I thought to myself, I said, you know what? I really haven't seen, because if you know on social media, it sounds kind of odd, but I'm going to use this point to drive it home. If you ever, on social media, you got certain people that stay in New York City and they do these videos, and there's always snow on the ground, and they're always wrapped up like they're in the Arctic or something. A lot of those folks, when they do those videos now, there's no snow anywhere, and they're just, a lot of times they're out there just like us in the South in a jacket or a t-shirt. So yeah, there's a snow deficit in New York City. New York State is fine. Around Albany, and of course Buffalo, they ain't hurting for snow. But New York City apparently is. I said, how odd is that? That's odd. It just is. But here in the South, and it gets odder because I got to be honest with you, we're continuously to have a winterless winter. Temperatures are up in the 70s. Last week, at the end of last week, it got up in the 80s. Yep, 80s in the South in February. Or this part of the South is odd. Maybe not down there in Miami or Florida or Alabama. They're used to those warm temperatures. But man, us up here in the other part of the South, up the northern part of the South, if that sounds odd. We do have winter. We do have some days in the 40s or 50s, or nights in the 30s and 20s and teens. But we ain't had too much of that. Not since sometime in January. February came in, and it's just like the temperature shot up. It's like we're having an early spring. Yes, we are. But my question is with all these warm temperatures and the rain, because what we lacked or missed out on in the form of snow, we made it up for it in rain. We shouldn't have a deficit in rainfall because it's been raining just about every day. But my question is, if we're going to have that early spring, how is the summer going to be? If you're from the South, or you've been in the South a while, and You're from up north, you know, when we have those early summers, or excuse me, early springs, when the summer comes in, the temperature is ramped up and we have a lot of 100-degree days. Wow. I'm not waiting on that. Those 100-degree days, they could take you out. They really can. So we'll see what happens with our weather. I mean, maybe before, I guess the 1st of March is Wednesday, and I believe that they're saying, or they are saying that it's the meteorological start of spring. And then I believe that's supposed to be in the 70s, close to 80s also, with rain coming. But man, how is we're having an early spring? How in the world is the summer going to look? Man, just wow. Odd weather pattern for the South. A winterless winter. It just is. All right. Let's go get it. Man, there's been a report that has came out that has shed some light on what they're calling the fastest growing student public school demographic in North Carolina as far as students go. And that's the Hispanic population. And the report was released by Latinx Education. And it's a nonprofit group that, of course, talks about the education of Hispanic kids. It was surprising, but it really wasn't surprising if you think about it, because the Hispanic population, not just in education, but just in population in general, it has grown in the past 20 years. Because this report has some data going back to 2000, I believe it was early 2000, that backs it up. You know, I went to a Black History program at my daughter's school last week, and I gotta say, where I didn't really pay attention, the Hispanic population, it has grown. In her school, you know, as far as the population of schools and of students, the black population, white population, or whatever, in comparison to the Hispanic population, the Hispanic population is here. Yeah, that population has grown in 20 years. I gotta say, I really didn't pay attention to it, like most of you, I'm sure. But you saw it. You see it every day. But that Black History program, it really brought it to the forefront for me. And then I came home and I was doing some research online and happened upon this report. And I said, I could see it also. There's no lies detected, if you could say. It is not a bad thing. More cultural diversity is a thing that is being used now more than ever. And I saw it firsthand with that Black History program. And I was like, wow. Now the report, it says flat out, North Carolina has to step its game up to combat the educational gap between Hispanic kids and other kids in public education. Now, what they're saying is the Hispanic population, it stands right now at 300,000 Hispanic students enrolled in public education here in North Carolina. That's like 1 out of 5 students. Yeah, I saw that. I agree wholeheartedly with that report. Now, what also they're saying is there's a lot of barriers. There's a lot of barriers, and these barriers, if you think about it, it's not too far-fetched. They're spot on. The first, of course, is the language barrier. The second is the internet access. We all remember, and I did a podcast back when we were knee-deep in COVID, where there was a problem here in Durham, North Carolina, with internet access for not only Hispanic kids, but black kids also. But the Hispanic population, they were having a huge problem with internet access and language barriers also. So another barrier is college. And what they said, there was 82% of Hispanic kids do graduate high school, but if that's still a lower demographic. It's still a low number in any demographic in the state. And if these kids, they are fortunate enough that they persevere and they move forward, if they do go to college, they would be the first generation in their family to attend college. So you got language barrier, you got internet access, and you got college prep or career prep even. Or some of the major barriers that this report says that the Hispanic population is facing as far as education. In North Carolina, they're going to need more resources to combat the problem. Yeah. That's a given. Just is. Now, but the one barrier that stuck out more than anything to me was the language barrier. That's huge. That's the first barrier. And it's not the language barrier where it's the kids don't understand or know English. It's a language barrier between the Hispanic kids and the teacher. Apparently, there are not enough teachers that are bilingual. The Hispanic population, to be truthful and honest, their native tongue, or Latin or Hispanic, or however you term it, or wherever they're from, that's the only thing spoken in the household. The parents aren't too proficient in English. So what this report also said that there are more than 146,000 Hispanics here in North Carolina where English is their second language. Wherever their parents are from or whatever Latino place of origin, birth or whatever, that's what's spoken in the household. That's not surprising. I work in retail. And I can tell you, that's from firsthand experience, yeah. A lot of times, the kids are the interpreter. If that sounds odd, it just is. That's the truth. I could find myself at any time of the day, multiple times of the day, having to conversate with the kids as the interpreter as he relays the message back to mom and dad. Yeah. So I can see where that language barrier it comes into play, and that's a huge, huge problem. Can't communicate. English is a second language. But for those kids at that young of age, and they're pretty young, to be able to speak two languages, I think it's a good thing. They're ahead of me. I only speak one language, and that's English. Excuse me. Excuse me. I took Spanish in high school. I fooled around with it. I wasn't serious about it. Looking back, I should have been more serious. I just should have. So what they discovered is that in 2022, just last year, there were 200. It was a 230% increase from a measly 44,000 in 2000. So, like I said, 20 some odd years later, we find that we have a problem with educating the Hispanic population, which is the most growing population here in North Carolina and the United States, with educating these kids. That 1 out of 5 kids in public education, they are Hispanic, and the language barrier is a huge, huge problem. Something that's going to have to be addressed. Like I said earlier, Spanish is the only language spoken in the home. Now, the group feels, of course, there needs to be more bilingual teachers. Yes, there does. There's going to have to be more bilingual teachers. They're going to need more education material that includes Hispanic culture and training on working across cultures and implement more implementation of the Spanish culture as a whole. Now, another thing that they didn't flat out say, but I got to thinking that they're not only going to need just more bilingual teachers, meaning they don't need to hire just more Hispanic teachers. They're going to have to ask some of these, the regular old teachers, the regular old English teachers, the regular old American teachers, they're going to have to learn Spanish. They're going to have to close this educational gap, or else we're going to have a huge, huge problem here in the United States or North Carolina. That population, they're here. And they have integrated their way into society and every day, from jobs, socially, economically. So if you have a population of people that can't speak the language and they're here every day in society, they're living here, you're going to have to address that problem, and you're going to have to educate their kids. So there's going to be a need for more money and more funding to push this through. As it stands for me, I can't think of, I think, honestly, I can't think of any better way for funding to be spent than to improve a child's education, and that includes the Hispanic population, Black population, everyone. You're going to have to put the money into this because this is a huge problem. You can't have folks walking around that can't speak English. As odd as that sounds to some folks, think about it. I can remember a time, when the Hispanic population first started to migrate here to the United States or here in North Carolina, and them not being able to speak English or not being able to speak English well, it was a huge problem. It was a huge barrier. It's a huge barrier for me now, and I just work in retail. Like I said, a lot of times those kids, they're the interpreter. They're there to interpret for Ma and Pa. So they've taken on a huge role in not just their family structure, but their society as a whole also. So if you're saying to yourself, there don't need to be no funding for that, that's foolish, you better think again. It's a huge problem. Now in 2018 through the 2019 school year, what they're saying as it relates to this language barrier, that there was only an 18% Hispanic student population, with only 3% of teachers that were Hispanic. And there's a huge need now. So they're not only going to have to recruit more Hispanic teachers, but I think wholeheartedly they're going to have to call on and rely on some good old American teachers. They're going to have to learn Spanish. I think many of them have. It has to be frustrating for them as educators to be in the classroom setting and they're trying to educate kids that only speak Latin, and they're seeing these kids fall behind, and it has to strike a chord with them, because, and I don't want to sound like I'm being a butt, but if you have a population of kids that can't keep up, that can't speak, just can't keep up because the basic thing is they don't understand what is being asked of them, that drains the education system, that drains the economy of that education system. It pulls funds out, and those kids are left behind. So when those kids are left behind, you have to get some more funding to get them up to speed. So yeah, we're going to have to increase the funding for education on that front. Not a problem for me. I can't think of any better way for the money to be spent. And I'm gonna be honest with you, because I've as a 50 or almost 50 years on this earth, I've seen some funding for education that has gone to some nonsense. So for them to use that funding to help these kids with the language barrier, the internet access, that's another huge problem. That internet access, man. Like I said earlier, we all remember during COVID when a lot of these kids, Black and Hispanic, they were sitting in, getting hot spots wherever they could. McDonald's, supermarkets, malls, they were just there. Public school buses were sitting in these places providing internet access. Hell, some school districts throughout the United States, the school buses that had internet access or Wi-Fi, they had them sitting in apartment complexes. So these kids could come out and get the internet access they needed to complete their schoolwork and homework. That's how serious it is. It's not something that'll be just glanced over. There is a huge problem, not just in the United States, but here in North Carolina with educating the Hispanic population. That's a huge population. It has grown. In 20 years, or 20 some odd years, 23 years, that population has skyrocketed. So it's a problem. And they're here. They're using the public educational system. So you got to fund them. You got to support them. You're saying that, because one of the things the report also said is you're saying that you want the Hispanic population to be a valuable asset to the community as a whole and society, but if you're not going to educate them, then they're eventually going to be a drain. Yeah, they are. Education is paramount, and that's anyone in this country. You got to put the money in. You got to put the funding in. You got to put the boots on the ground. So it means you're going to have to hire more Hispanic teachers and ask the regular American teachers to learn Spanish. Yeah, it has to be done. That report, I think it will open a lot of people's eyes that haven't really paid attention, and for those that have been paying attention, unlike me, um, they know the problems, and it just brings it to the forefront as far as they're concerned. It lets you know. So yeah, we're going to have to. North Carolina is going to have to step its game up to close this educational gap with the Hispanic population. Man, 1 out of 5 kids are in a classroom setting, and they quite possibly could be lagging behind because of not being able to speak English. Opens your eyes. Just does, just does. All right, let me move along here also. Man, and this next piece, wow, another thing I didn't know about. As I always tell you, when I'm doing these podcasts, I'm doing the research and I'm reading, I'm learning as I go, just as you're sitting here quite possibly listening and you're learning also. And this next piece, it's news to me. Oh man, there's a new bill in the North Carolina State House, which would lengthen the jail time for, it lengthens the jail time and it raises the felony classification for teachers that have been charged and convicted for indecent liberties with a minor. You dirty dogs. Yeah, I said it. I did. And I really didn't know about the felony classification. I really didn't know about the jail time. I thought when these people were convicted, they were sent to jail and that was it. But I found it just odd, and I always ask myself, why are we as a society in a whole, we're so far behind as it relates to protecting our kids, our most precious commodity? And why are we so lenient with those that we entrust with our most precious commodity that abuse that right and abuse our children? Why are we so lenient with the punishment for it? Because when I said it lengthened the jail time and it raised the felony classification, it did. And I really didn't know what the previous felony classification and jail time, man, that was low. That was just, I couldn't believe it when I was reading it. I was like, well, wait a minute. I kept going back thinking, man, I missed something. This ain't right. I just did. Now, currently, the felony classification is a class 1 felony. If anybody knows about a class 1 felony, it ain't too much. It just ain't. It ain't too much. And what it is now is it's a class 1 felony with 24 months in prison. It's only 2 years for indecent liberties with a minor. Again, you dirty dog. What in the world? Now, the new bill is called House Bill 142, and it raised the prison term to 47 months, and it's now been labeled as a Class G felony. Now, if this bill goes through, and they're saying it quite possibly could go through because they've been getting a lot of support across the aisles, both Democrat and Republican. Yep. Needs to be. I don't want to hear any bickering about your politics on this subject. This matter, it needs to be handled, and it needs to be handled quick. Probably should have been handled decades ago. You have a teacher that is just misusing and abusing a child, and all they got was a low-level felony and 2 years in jail? In comparison to someone that's a drug dealer or whatever, or what have you, and they damn near go to jail for a decade. Got a dirty perv that is touching and whatever, or what have you with the child, and you only give them 2 years in a low-level felony? Yeah. This should have been changed decades ago. Now, the bill also clarifies state law on impermissible contacts with students. Now, this bill, if it goes through, it's going to change not only the prison sentence and the felony classification, but it's going to outline and give a more specific details as to what can and can't be done, apparently. Now, what it does say is if the would-be felony charge, if administrators fail to report problems, they could, I guess, they could be charged or given a felony also. Also, another part which I've kind of found out, if you think about it, why would, well, apparently you may need to, because they felt the need to put this in this bill. What it says is they're going to give a 6-month grace period after a student leaves school or graduates. So apparently the teacher can't touch the young adult up until 6 months after he or she leaves high school. So you got to wait 6 months before you somehow continue a relationship with a former student. Oh boy, to think that they would have to put something like that in that bill, that just signifies you're sick. You just are. You're sick. Now, in 2016, if you're thinking, well, maybe it's not that widespread, maybe the numbers aren't that great. It is. It just seems like, to me personally, every other day you can hear on the news of a student, a teacher being charged with indecent liberties with a minor or child pornography. Now, in 2016, what they said, there were 124 instances of sexual misconduct involving students and teachers. And dare I say, just looking at the news on a day-to-day basis, that number's going up. Now, another thing, the bill also wants to implement, in addition to raising that felony classification and that jail time and the implication of the specifications of what you can and can't do, and the administrators are going to be held accountable for not reporting the problem in a timely manner, and for those sick teachers that have stuck in their mind somehow, some way they want to continue a relationship with a former student, they have to wait 6 months. They're also going to require that students in the 6th through the 12th grade are going to have to watch age-appropriate videos explaining the warning signs of abuse, neglect, or telling students how to report a problem confidentially. So they're going to make these kids sit down and watch a video on being touched. I guess they do have to do that. Apparently, there's a lot more sickos out there than I thought. They just are. Like I said, it seems like every other day we see on the news of a teacher being arrested and charged with indecent liberties with a minor or child pornography in this country. We just do. Now, also the bill would give the state the right to deny pensions to those accused and convicted of indecent liberties with a minor. Should have never had it anyway. I think once you're charged and convicted of that, that's it for you. You're done away with. Take everything. Snatch it all away. Now, it also delves into, of course, if you're convicted and charged with indecent liberties with a minor, you lose your teaching certification also. Now, what I also found kind of odd, because I personally think if you've been tried and convicted of that, you need to lose everything. You just do. Like I said once before, that's our most precious commodity, our children. But apparently in that bill, I guess maybe they're showing some empathy, which I can't understand. Like I said, I don't know why we as a society and why our legal or justice system is so lax on charging and convicting these people when they do commit a crime like this. What that bill also says is, in addition, of course, they're going to take the license, they're going to take the pension, but if they have contributed personally themselves, they'll leave that be. What are you going to give them something, a fresh new start? Now, regular old you and I, if we were to do some nonsense like that, that would be it for us. We lose it all. They should lose it all too. That's the only quarrel I have with that bill. Take everything they got. Make them start from scratch, like you and I, if we were to do something sick like this. But then again, what do I know? What do I know? Now, like I said, I didn't really fully and truthfully understand the felony classifications, I thought, like I said, I thought once these fools were convicted of touching these children, that was it for them. It was the ball game. The game was over. You lose everything, and you go and spend a large chunk of your life in jail. But apparently, it's not. Like I said, the class 1 felonies, that's one of the lowest felonies that's out there. But for regular folks, when we do something like this, God forbid, it's labeled as a class F felony. And that's the 6th to the highest ranking. That's a problem. It just is. There's no way in the world you could convince me otherwise. Once you cross that line and you're an educator, you need to have the book thrown at you. You need to be placed up under the jail. And that's the same way, like I said, for us as regular old citizens, when the parents do something like that, yeah, you need to be done away with also. You need to sit in jail for a huge chunk of your life. I'm sorry. I don't understand why we're so lax with our kids and how they're mistreated and abused. Maybe that's just an underlying part of society that has gone on since maybe the beginning of time. I don't know. But yeah, for you and I, as a regular old citizen, if we committed an act like this, it's a class F felony, the 6th to the highest in ranking, or a mid-level felony. You know, that's like your violent assaults, your involuntary manslaughter, or common law robbery. But we would receive 59 months in jail as opposed to that former teacher who, at this time, only gets 24 months. But if the bill is passed, it goes up to 47 months. You need to give them more time than that. 47 months, that's what, just under 4 years? And if you contribute it to your pension in any way with your own personal dollars, you get that to start over again. Just lose your license, your pension, and your status as a teacher or whatever, what have you. I can't. I understand, and I'm grateful that they're actually looking into it, and they're going to raise that, the felony level and the time served. Kudos, that's good. But if I'm looking at it right, and I read that report, if you're only giving them 4 years or under 4 years, as opposed to the 59 months that you would give to a regular citizen that committed an act like that, I think somebody needs to come along and up that prison time also. Yeah. You need to spend a huge chunk of your life behind bars to think what you did. Like I said, that now for teachers, that class 1 felony in comparison to the class F felony that you and I would face, it's the least serious. Like I said, that class 1 felony is the least serious felony. That's usually reserved for larceny of a dog, credit card fraud, or domestic violence. And you only serve 24 months. That's odd. That's off. That's way off. This build is a great start, but you guys, I'm sorry, you need to go back, check into that jail time. 24 months, 2 years for touching someone's child. And you also got to put as a specification in this new bill that if that young adult graduates high school, it's hands off for 6 months. If he only served, if the bill goes through, just over 4 years. Not as all. Change that jail time. Raise it. Give them 10 years. You're being modest. Let them spend a decade. 10 years out of your life sitting behind prison, sitting behind those prison walls. That will wake you up. 10 years of your life snatched because you could control your hormones or sexual urges that you touched a child. Yeah, you need to do some jail time. You need to do more than 4 years. 10 years. And that's a start. You can go up from there as far as I'm concerned. Spend a decade in jail so you have time to think. Now, like I said, if this House Bill 142 goes through, it raises the felony from a Class 1 to a Class G felony, which is the third to lowest of felonies. Okay. It's considered a mid-level. And that goes, that's usually reserved once again for your violent assaults, involuntary manslaughter, and common law robbery. Like I said, for me, raise that prison time. Care nothing about their pension. Don't care nothing about that they contributed with their own personal dollars into their pension, so they get to keep that side of the pension. Take that too. Let them sit in jail for a minimum of 10 years and let them start from scratch like regular citizens do. You don't get any special privy from me because you were a teacher. You were a teacher and you were entrusted with something and you violated that trust. And now you want some kind of, they're throwing you a lifeline? Nah. Need to up that prison time. Take every damn thing they've got and let them start from scratch. Yeah, I said it. You get no warm and fuzzies past or woes. You're starting over. You made a mistake for me. If you're going to give me 59 months, if I do some sick, twisted, demented thing like that and have me to start from scratch, I need you to do the same. You lost that right. You lost that privilege. You lost that when you touch that child, and no one cares what you used to be. Ain't that how they do it for us? Boy, that's just some whole kind of sickness that I couldn't even fathom or imagine. It just is. But yeah, I think these politicians here in North Carolina and Raleigh, go back to that drawing board with that bill and raise that prison sentence. 10 years. Simple and plain. Let them start from there. I care nothing about you serving 4 years. You got guys out here, guys and gals out here that deal drugs, and they got 10 years coming out the gate. And here you are, you touched the child, and probably continue. That's probably why they put that specification in this bill about 6 months after that child leaves school, his hands off. Because your fools were you still carried on a relationship with them. That's a no for me. 10 years plus, and we go from there. All right, I'm going to get out of here, going to skedaddle today. Like I said, I'm off, and I'm going to relax myself. I just am. I want to thank you all for lending me your ears this morning. Continue to like, support, share, offer feedback. Anchor has a great feature where you can leave a voice response. And that's in conjunction with now YouTube. So jump in that comment section and let me know what you think also. Like I said, continue to offer support, feedback. You can also make monetary contributions. Continue to follow and listen on Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Breaker, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, YouTube, Verbal, and WordPress. And as always, thank you for listening. My name is Stephen Carnegie for This Is Just a Thought. Amen.